Good evening, Dominica. A pleasant good evening to you, and welcome to another episode of Roots Connections on Q, right here on Q95, the big station. It is always great to be with you as we continue to share on the important topic of how we can all advance Dominica and the role that we can all play. And Lambi, if you don't mind, please ask Showen to try to let the guest in again. I think he may have dropped off for just a minute. But again, it is wonderful to be with you for another episode of Roots Connections on Q. We continue to face many battles in Dominica and many, but here on Roots Connections, we are committed. Just mute your mic for 1 second. We are committed to securing financial independence for our people so that they may be able to make other important decisions, such as the governments they elect to run the country. So a very warm welcome to you. This is episode number 70 of Roots Connections on Q for today, Monday, May 8th. And I am your host, Simone Matthew. Today we are joined by a very special guest, Mr. Brendon Roberts, one of the top cannabis minds in Canada. And as of April of this year, the new chair of research and policy for the Canadian cannabis tourism industry. Among other things, we will discuss from criminalization to a booming industry. Can Dominica still benefit from the growing worldwide cannabis industry? But before we get started, let us remember to pray for our country and all the challenges that we face. And today we are especially grateful because come Sunday, the 12th of May, it will be the third anniversary of Roots Connection. So we're very happy to be celebrating our third anniversary of Roots Connections on Sunday. So we want to say a very special thank you to everyone who continues to make this program possible and play a vital role. For example, our guest this evening was referred to us by Miss J.L. Joseph, someone that we know very well. And let me just say this, because after 3 years of interviews and programs with Dominicans living around the world, the conclusion I have come to is that one of the main reasons why Dominica is not where most of us would like to see it is because the powers that be are not leveraging the expertise, skills, and talents of many Dominicans who are willing and ready to contribute to the development of Dominica. But you know, there's always good news, because what we found from doing this program is that 5 out of 10 times, 6 out of 10 times, I will have someone reach out to me after the program to indicate that they're doing something similar to our guest, or to say, how might I contribute to what your guest is doing? So, I am always a hopeful person. I always see the glass as half full. So I think that we can see the impact of this program as folks continue to contribute to the development of Dominica. So again, we want to say a very warm welcome to everyone who's joining us. And also don't forget, May 12th, Sunday, is Mother's Day. So remember to honor your moms and everyone who's played a motherly role in your life. So I want to say a special happy Mother's Day in advance to my mom, Mrs. Medina Senhouse, as well as my Aunt Beverly and my Aunt Ziska, who also played important roles in my life as women. So with that, let us welcome our guest to the program, Mr. Brendon Roberts. If you can unmute your mic and greet the audience just with a quick introduction, and then I will give you an opportunity to completely introduce yourself. So thank you for being here, Brendon. Always great to have an esteemed guest like you joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Simone, and thank you to the Dominican public for having me today on the show. And I look forward to having a entertaining discussion with you guys and the general public. My people and them from VCAS and Granby, and my students as a teacher from the Isaiah Thomas Secondary School, from all the way from Dublin, Bioche, Collyhoo, and St. Joe, Campbell, and Mahu. I say a pleasant good afternoon and good evening to everybody and listeners from far and wide, both home and abroad.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you so much for joining us, Brendon. And again, I think we may be connected because, my dad, William Senhouse, was from Vegas as well. So, I'm always making connections all over the place. So, again, thank you for joining us. And by the way, stay tuned until the end of the program because we also want to we continue talking about the role each one of us can play in supporting Dominica, but we also want to highlight the work how you can be a part of supporting Dominica events in your particular area. So even before we get started into the main part of the program, I want to read a quick bio of Mr. Brendon Roberts, aka Ganja Papa. I like that name, Brendon. So, as a distinguished authority in plant science who has held several senior management portfolios in horticulture, cannabis crop production, quality assurance, and facility operations throughout corporate Canada, I apply my expertise in plant breeding and genetics, phytopharmaceuticals, and international plant agriculture development to advance the science and innovation of sustainable agri-food modeling and control the plant medicine substances. I lead and collaborate with multidisciplinary and cross-disciplinary teams of scientists, industry partners, farmers, indigenous people, women, minority communities, senior citizens, universities, NGOs, and government agencies to conduct cut-edge research and development novel solutions for the production, quality, and regulation of agri-food systems, medicinal and herbal plants. With multiple decades of practical experience in the industry of precision plant agriculture, environmental and biological sciences, I have a proven track record of delivering high quality results, publications, and curriculum development in various domains, such as food production, horticulture botany, cannabis cultivation, post-harvest, and facility operations. I have also completed numerous training courses in quality control, CPP, GACP, EU, GMP, GDP, plant production technologies, advertising, media, sales, and customer service to enhance my skills and executive management competencies. Similarly, I am an alumni of Canada's prestigious Ontario Agricultural College, University of Guelph, with an emphasis on international plant agriculture development, a modern existentialist who excels at knowledge translation and transfer to aid the global food production system, plant medicine, and herbalism industries. I am frequently invited to speak at agricultural and cannabis conferences, radio talk shows, symposia, workshops, podcasts, and forums within Canada, USA, Europe, Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean region. Connect with fellow plant enthusiasts and let's explore the ever expanding world of agri food translation modeling and plant medicines together. Unlock the secrets of nature's pharmacy because with knowledge blooms healing flourish. Yes. So, Brendon, after reading all that, I only have one question for you. When do you get a chance to actually sleep?
Well, the sleep really is not really for the living. You have to keep grinding and keep going at it. And, I'm a testament to my work and the dedication and commitment that I put into elevating my discipline and practice. And, as a son of the Dominican soil, the journey all began in Dominica. And
Mhm.
I'm proud to be, a son of the soil and doing wonderful things abroad and, continue to contribute positively in any way, shape, or form to the global discussion and dialogue where food modeling and herbalism and cannabis industry is concerned, and to contribute to the practice and to leave something behind that at least a born Dominican contributed positively to global discussion where cannabis and herbalism, including plant agriculture development, on a global scale.
Yes, and we have so much to unpack, Brendan, but I want us to get started from the beginning. So tell us all about life in Dominica, your upbringing, and then kind of just walk us through how you ended up in the cannabis industry, and then we will take it from there. And while you do so, let me go ahead and share the program to everyone who's waiting for the link, but kind of just take us to the beginning, your upbringing in Dominica.
Well, I would say my upbringing was a little bit unconventional. I was born in the village of Vekas, at the old health center. At the time, my father from Granby, I was staying in the Morton area, was part and parcel of the cannabis drug trade in the 1880s and early 90s. He eventually faced 20 years prison in the French territories. My mom eventually later was murdered. So I grew up pretty much without parents and grew up with my grandmother Doreen and my more or less my great grandmother Majonas and later down my grandmother Doreen Rui. And it was quite, I always loved farming and indulged myself in activities that, contributed towards those endeavors. I even remember as a child going and knock on homes with my basket on my head, selling my lettuce and stuff as a child. And, I attended the Portsmouth Secondary School as well. I also attended the St. John Primary School in Portsmouth. And from after the CXC, I believe I attained about 6 1s at the Caribbean examination, and later on went on into the Dominica State College where I also did agricultural sciences as a major. From there, I graduated and then also became a teacher at the Isaiah Thomas Secondary School in Dominica, teaching about agricultural sciences and reinforcing the theoretical component of agricultural sciences through practical applications. So we grew vegetables and crops at the school in St. Joseph, and most of these crops were sold to teachers and neighboring villages to sort of raise funds for the class and also the students themselves. I would call them at the front of assembly. They would also receive pay packets for their hard work and dedication, particularly over the weekends, because I wanted to keep them off the streets, particularly the guys from Salisbury and St. Joe, Maho, Campbell, and even the young ladies as well. They came and they integrated nicely in the program and also cooking for the young men working out in the field. And our efforts were also rewarded. We also received the best agricultural school for outstanding performances within agriculture in the country in 2014, along with the Ministry of Education and Human Resource Development. We also received similar honors from the agricultural ministry and department. Even the students from the Dominica State College would come down to visit the farm and liaison with what we were doing and further integrate into the reinforcing of these practical sort of theories into practical application where it is favorably rated. We got donations from companies like Fine Foods, who donated over $20,000 at the time, and a greenhouse to provide crops and stuff locally in Dominica, because they recognized that the quality that we were growing at the school was higher than the quality that they were even importing. And the schools here was always known as the bread basket of Dominica. So I was happy to partake in that journey, though it wasn't easy and it was rather challenging. It started under Mr. Jerome Badwill, the principal at the time, who hired me, and it continued under Miss Shirley Samuel, who took over Mr. Jerome Badwill. I also wrote proposals and got funding from different Canadian institutions, because people tend to sit and complain about the government, and I
Mhm.
wasn't that sort of individual. I was an individual. In order to lead a people, you got to lead by example. And every Saturday, though the teaching salary was very small, I would go back to school on Saturdays and Sundays. They donated back the salaries to assist the student with transportation to go back to their respective communities after they came volunteering over the weekends. And I mean, it was hard for me. It's not money we were making as a teacher, but I saw around me everybody just normally complain, and I wasn't really the complain type. I was more of the doer kind of type, and staying committed and dedicated to your practice and your own discipline do help to set a new standard. And these were the things that I strive for. And the students, they would come, and even from the weekends they would be like, these were the troublemakers in the school, but they're always there with you on a Saturday. They're always using their time constructively. Sometimes they even want to dock teachers classes and other subjects to join me on the farm, and I have to reject them most of the times and tell them, their other subjects and discipline are also important. But I was teaching them the way as to how you can use agriculture and scientific innovation and advancement in harnessing the sort of photons and climatic conditions we get from the West Coast, and translate that energy into a bountiful garden that can sort of provide food security, both locally and even for export domestically. My family was also involved in the oxter trade, and would go abroad and bring me to St. Martin and St. Kitts and the other Antigua, the neighboring islands, to sell produce as a young man and boy. So
Mhm.
I
And
did very
I just want to highlight some of what you're saying, Brendon, because you've truly had a fascinating journey. And I think some of what you're saying is worth highlighting. Because, first of all, I like that you speak to the fact that many times, and we are not saying here that the government is not responsible for creating the markets, creating that enabling environment for production in Dominica and for Dominicans to see their way. But in the reality, if the reality is that not enough is being done by the government, I like what you said about not sitting and waiting around for the powers that be to create opportunities. Here you are, a young man with a very small salary as a teacher, but yet you found creative ways to engage your students to the point where they were excited about agriculture. And now, today, so often we hear folks say, oh, young people are not interested in agriculture. Agriculture is a foregone conclusion. Nobody wants to do agriculture because they don't want to get their hands dirty. But here you were, proving that if you present agriculture in a fun and exciting ways, yeah, your students were willing to bypass some of their other classes to come with you and do agriculture. So I just want to make sure that we are highlighting the salient points in what you're saying. So continue with what you were saying. So thank you so much for raising these points.
You're most welcome. I mean, of course, the government has a huge part to play and creating
Absolutely.
creating the enabling environment for agricultural programs to thrive in any country. But the reality, even on a global scale, and even here in Canada, you'll always hear farmers and its citizens saying the government is not doing enough. It's a loud cry in the geopolitical world, and Dominica is no exception. But within our own sort of circumstances and challenges and issues domestically, we also have to look beyond that. But with my certain circumstance, it was a passion for me in agriculture. And I wouldn't let that burning desire and passion that I felt within my soul since as a young child at the age of 5 to do farming. Like my fellow farmers within the community of acres, they would decide, like the elders, you're too educated and smart to indulge in farming. We did not become very successful and probably remain somewhat poor, and we didn't really want to go and have our children venture out into these areas. So me carrying probably my machete early on as a teenage boy, people would look down on me. But I always knew that I wanted to merge and integrate technology with farming. And despite they wanted me to become doctor or lawyer, the farmer was where I gravitated towards, and it has paid off dividends for me because it's the only industry and discipline that I have known and ever worked in. So it's part and parcel of my entire career, from a child up to present. And I guess that's what creates and make me probably a little bit more exceptional within my own practice, because I'm a testament from early childhood up to present day within the realms of agriculture.
Yeah, and I truly hope that everyone is sharing this live because, we have to inspire the next generation. Because again, we have to change that mindset in Dominica, that expression that we all heard growing up. If you don't learn in school, I will send you to plant fig, right? So we have to change that mindset. And then we wonder why young people are not interested in agriculture. Recently we had Dr. Davidson Lloyd, who is also a soil specialist and environmental scientist. And he's a highly educated man. And he too gravitated to agriculture. So this whole concept that if you're highly educated, you should become a doctor and a lawyer, we have to start changing that mindset. But also, I just want to remember to welcome everyone who is joining us via Facebook and YouTube Live. Don't forget, we are live at Push Past 10 and Q95 FM Radio, both on Facebook and YouTube. And we also want to thank Lambi. Thank you for being here. Showing, thank you for keeping us connected in the background. So I wanted to make sure that we remember to invite everyone to join us. And again, if you tuned in a little bit late, we are speaking to Mr. Brendon Roberts, one of the top cannabis minds in Canada, and the recently elected chair of research and policy for the Canadian Cannabis Tourism Alliance. And he has to tell us all about what that involves. But Brendon, take us now to you migrating to Canada. How did that come about?
Yes, well, growing up in Vegas as well, we were always surrounded by a lot of bright scholars. And one of my mentors at the time was Mr. Camille David. And he too was a farmer. His dad was a farmer and farmed many acres. He also provided me with many acres as well to farm. And he always encouraged me because he saw the gift from me in farming as a very young boy, and I guess the mastery that I possess in the discipline, and wanted to always push me further. So he told me about Guelph, and later that night I spun a globe and my hand fell on Canada, and I looked up Canada, and Canada was one of the countries in the geopolitical world speaking about going statewide, federal wide in terms of cannabis legislation. So I had my eyes on Canada. I knew Uruguay in 2013, had already legalized cannabis. So my next move would be to target a country in the global north, and Canada came knocking on my doors. I researched the universities there for agricultural and horticultural sciences, and I came across the University of Guelph. The University of Guelph today, I believe, well, this month it got 150 years in the research of agriculture and horticultural science worldwide, particularly in the area of Canada, and making Canada a powerhouse in the global community. So I dig a little bit deeper into Guelph. I saw in the early late 60s Rosie Douglas, one of the former prime minister and the MP from Portsmouth, attended the university. His dad at the time was a wealthy coconut farmer who could afford to send him to Canada to further his studies. So we already had great Dominicans that attended those prestigious institutions. So that even made me gravitate more towards it. Um, Later on, I eventually mortgaged my family home, and I went on a plane and landed in YYZ, Toronto. Um, I had no friends and hardly any no family in the land, and just my suitcase, and I had to do my thing. But I had a goal at mind, and I went to the university and get settled in and starting to hone in on the subjects that I need to do. And they allowed me to work about 20 hours a week as an international student. I mean, I'm paying 3 to 4 times the price of the domestic student.
Mm-hmm.
But no, nothing comes easy in life, and it's always a hustle. So you keep at it. And when I saw that school here in North America, though it provides you with education and how to learn, and it's also a business. It's a money-making system as well. So what I did, I wrote to the academic review committee, and I decided to double my course load
Mm-hmm.
for the same price. So I was doing double the work. I was doing 2 semesters of the average student into one. So I completed my studies in record time, and from there, I ventured out into the horticultural industry in Canada. I started by growing over 20 million trees in northwestern Ontario, along with provincial and indigenous leaders and stakeholders in the lumber industry that normally cut down the forest and for lumber production, pulp and toilet paper and what have you not, and helping them to sort of maintain the afforestation program and keep Canada sustainable and within its environmental natural resource, and that is pretty much the lumber. And from there, ventured out into the Maritimes of Nova Scotia, and operated one of North America's largest indoor cannabis farms, and also managed another 250,000 square foot facility in Nova Scotia as well, the neighboring province in the Maritimes in the Atlantic region. From there, I also ventured out into British Columbia, that's the Western Hemisphere, and manage the largest outdoor farm in North America as well, 290 acres, developed from scratch and licensed facility. And from there, I also managed the first farm to gate facility in British Columbia, where small sort of craft cannabis cultivation can be sort of produced and sold right at the retail section of the business itself, and also creating an enabling environment for cannabis tourism to thrive, so that you can develop more economic sort of resources and livelihoods for the people, particularly in rural Canada. So the journey has led me to steward the largest outdoor, the largest indoor, the first farm to gate facility in the province that is most known for its brand as BC Bud in Canada and globally. within the entire North America and by will the extension. So from that, I bring a wealth of knowledge. I've also written a book, and that book is called Cannabis Development. So I have a book called Cannabis Development. I like to say it's a pretty big book, and it deals with a number of topics in relation to the developmental aspect of cannabis, looking, unveiling the social science, particularly cannabis, society, and self enlightenment.
Yeah, and
So,
we want to talk about that as well, and we also want to talk about the levels, the heights that you have reached in your career, and the whether or not you have offered to be a part of the conversation in Dominica. But I also want you to tell us about the state of the cannabis industry. So, what is the earnings of the cannabis industry at this point in time? So, I just want us to have a view of the type of earnings that the cannabis industry now earns, and then the follow up to that we will talk about at some point is, are there still opportunities for Dominica to have a piece of the pie in terms of the cannabis industry? Because we all know that one of the reasons that you probably got into agriculture is that Dominica has the natural resources for a booming agriculture, especially as it relates to the thriving and the growing industry of cannabis. So, kind of let us just start off by talking about the scope of the earnings of the cannabis industry and some of the subsectors of the cannabis industry, because we're keeping in mind, how can Dominica fit in and get a piece of that pie?
well, the cannabis industry is a burgeoning sort of sector, and you have up to inching up to $30 billion. By the end of the decade, we should probably, with more countries adding to legalization, in the region up to $100 billion. So cannabis, as we all know, is sort of medicine, and it's a plant that is highly regarded for its phytopharmaceutical properties in terms of cannabinoids like THC, CBD, and others. And you also have a lot of terpenes that we have from our natural fruits like citrus and lemonine, all these things that we can find in oranges and limes and other natural sort of fruits on islands. We also have those healing properties as well within cannabis that are shown and promise to help with anxiety, depression, and among numerous related alignments. Sort of like insomnia and increasing appetite. And so, cannabis is an industry in the health and wellness sector that continues to boom. Lots of governments within the global north have registered collecting millions and even billions of dollars. Even in the area of Colorado in the United States, as a case study, you're looking at California in the western part of the United States, and you have areas like even Canada. The government has very significant revenue through taxation on each gram of cannabis. So it creates an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. But while it also has its upside, it also has its downside because it's pretty new. Cannabis has been criminalized and sort of demonized for almost 70 to 100 years now. And, to undo a lot of the brainwashing that was done, came about the war on drugs within the United States legislation, having cannabis scheduled as a class 1 drug substance, which prohibited research, development from scholars and universities, and also provided a lucrative trade within the black market, where a lot of lives and horrors and stories that we all know, and the Caribbean, Latin America, and the Caribbean region are not immune to these stories. Um, but however, we have various sectors within cannabis, chief science officers and brewers, retailing, marketing, all those play critical components, quality assurance, quality control, testing, um, trade shows, to stimulate the industry, but to almost have an inclusive and holistic approach towards cannabis development. You have public health experts because we're dealing with a controlled drug and substance, and um, it's paramount for safeguarding public health, and even particularly students and children probably under the age that may slow down their own development if consuming cannabis too early as well. So you have various cross sectors within the cannabis sort of industry because the development is both interdisciplinary and cross-disciplinary in nature.
Yeah, and one of the areas we want to focus on is the tourism aspect, because wellness is such an important aspect of the world right now, where people are just overly stressed. A lot of people have high stress jobs, high stress situations in their life, and they're simply looking to, visit a resort, a wellness resort, and how that industry can be a part of tourism. So we have a lot to uncover, Brendon. I'm so happy that you're joining us today and providing all this valuable information. But I also want to mention, we had a wonderful program back in September 27th, I believe, of 2023 with Elvis Papi Edwards. And he as well is from Dominica, and he's based in Colorado, and he's doing some very important work with producing products that he sells with cannabis. And he's doing extremely well. And the wonderful thing about it is he just gave me some breaking news that I'm not going to share just yet, because we're going to invite him to talk about it. So you will want to follow Q95 FM radio and Push Past 10 either on Facebook or YouTube, so you can find out about the new developments in the cannabis industry and everything that we are missing on out, because we do not have a formal cannabis industry in Dominica. So I really want to thank you for everything that you're contributing today, Brendon. So we know that you have been a keynote speaker at several conferences, several seminars, workshops. So I want to talk about the information you provided on your website. And again, the website is, tell us again, Ganja.
www.ganjapapaworld.com.
Yes, and I'm going to post it in the comments. So again, guys, it's
World.com.
www.ganjapapaworld.com. And I have a curious question for you, Brendon, as we're talking about Ganja Papa. Is it part of the culture of cannabis producers to have nicknames that involves Papa? Because you are Brendon Ganja Papa, and Elvis is Elvis Papi Edwards. So I'm just curious, is that part of the culture to have a Papa kind of name?
I would say, growing up as a young boy, and, if you look at what was happening back in Colombia and Mexico and even Latin America and the Caribbean, we produced a lot of narcos. We produced a lot of big drug traffickers, and at the heights, you had kingpins and drug lords and papas. And, rooted in cannabis for such a child, and taking it from, cannabis curing my asthma from a very early age. My dad giving me the male roots to drink, fostering that relationship so early. It has sort of made me into a grandfather, and that is highly knowledgeable and, elevated sort of the horticulture discipline to understand the plant more, and to be able to give back in society through sort of education. It's sort of a fitting self-proclaimed title.
I understand. I completely understand. Yes, so we still have a lot to uncover and to speak about. And at the top of the hour, guys, we will be providing you with the phone numbers so you can call in to the program as well. But again, Brendon, I want you to tell us some of the keynote speaking engagements that you had recently, and in particular, some of what you discussed at some of these engagements, and especially as it relates to a particular topic that you covered, leveraging AI to enhance soil testing and save money. Because I found that very fascinating. I mean, I could spend days just reading everything that you've posted on LinkedIn, everything that you've posted on your website, because it is truly fascinating. And yeah, so let's start with that, and then we will continue on.
Well, I believe the most recent one that I did in terms of speaking engagement dealt with cannabis tourism, looking at the domestic context, domestic and international context here in Canada and abroad, and promise that it holds for continuing to develop Canada into an authority destination or high destination for tourists alike seeking cannabis travel. As you know, Canada is one of the countries that went statewide in its cannabis legislation after Uruguay. Canada went in about, I think, 2018 and Uruguay in 2013. So, we're leading this sort of global discourse, and, we have travelers from Amsterdam, Jamaica, and other areas that have legalized cannabis. The most recent in the global north would be Germany. So last month, Germany recently passed legislation in their parliament to have cannabis legalized, and we have also countries like the UK exploring its legalization. We have both Australia and New Zealand as well. We also have Southeast Asia, Thailand has already come on board, and you have a lot of the what we call the global south countries are sort of lagging behind, and particularly, Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean region. But we also have in Africa, South Africa has come on board for some time now, and a few sort of states in Africa, and also exploring cannabis for EU GMP export into the European Union. And what cannabis tourism, pretty much, you have Uruguay, you have the Netherlands, you have Jamaica within
Mhm.
our region in the Caribbean that has already taken a robust initiative towards it, cannabis collaborative tourism development program. And Canada and Humboldt County in California, as well as in Colorado and many states on the US, looking and ahead where cannabis, great news is about to be sort of descheduled. Hopefully, they say to class three, which will allow for a lot of research development and the inpouring of investors and new and smart monies into the cannabis industry. And that's where we can, as a small island within the Caribbean region and heavily dependent on our nature and ecotourism sort of destination as a one-stop shop for travelers within those realms, that can continue to create further economic potential and boost into the tourism sector within our own small island developing states. We know that Dominica, we have numerous hotels on islands and spas and resorts that are coming on board. And if those within the legislation can accommodate dispensaries where you have small craft growers, that is probably legislated from the government to grow cannabis and provide these hoteliers so that they can get a true Dominican experience of our own natural herb. I mean, we have great herbalists who came and lived in Dominica, and including the great Dr. Sebi, who lived around the Point Michel area in the time of Mamu, um, and known to cure cancer with over 30 patients within the United States, and a self-proclaimed healer. But we had numerous individuals from our own country who learned a lot from him, including Ras Bobby, who reside in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So we have always known as a small island developing state for cannabis being sort of that central hub within the archipelago islands of the Caribbean. And it's no secret that we have lost lots of lives going to Guadeloupe and these small French territory islands around Dominica because they could fetch higher prices through decriminalization of cannabis and the drug during those era, and was quite a lucrative trade for many decades. And with legalization, Dominica probably can play an integral part in trade with those neighboring islands that historically have always been known for transporting and illegally herb from Dominica. We also had U.S. Coast Guard law reinforcement to help us with curtailing crimes within our waters and stuff within our shores. And so we know the history of those islands. They carry their own sort of unique history. St. Vincent as well is no stranger to cannabis as well within the Caribbean. And you have countries like Antigua who has already taken aggressive steps
Mhm.
towards its country legalization and probably benefiting as one of the Caribbean's large share of traffic for tourism. So we're all fighting for that tourism pie within the Caribbean, and I believe for the young people, an industry sort of cannabis could help create more jobs, more economic spin-off, socio-economic development, and allow for more sustainable growth and development. And with the wellness industry and spas and people abroad, particularly in North America, they want to come down to islands like us. Every day they would ask me, wow, why would you leave a
Mhm.
paradise like that to come in a cool country like ours up here? So they want to enjoy that sort of um, island life, sea sand and sort of sex, and with adding sort of cannabis to that makeup provides open
Complete
more doors.
euphoria.
Exactly. So you have your massage, you eat nice fruits, you have nature walks, you have probably level one Whitey Kubuli trails that they can indulge themselves in and create activities, and also a lot to like to mingle with the locals and learn about the local culture. So it's also important to help with sustaining and upkeep of the local towns and villages, so that when visitors pass through our streets, at least we trying the best with the little that we have, but to promote ourselves, particularly in the um, digital age and era where everything can go very viral in a
Viral.
space of time, and
Mhm.
provide both negative and positive publicity. And we want to concentrate probably more on the positive aspect as to portraying ourselves, as a small island, but loving people who has an awesome culture, and would also like to foster greater integration and collaboration within our region and by extension the international community.
Yeah, and I have to say, this is fascinating, and I want to hear more about the tools that you offer, the book that you published, the courses that you offer. But I have a burning question as I hear you keep talking about the potential of the cannabis industry. In your opinion, Brendan, why don't we have a thriving cannabis tourism, cannabis wellness, cannabis anything industry in Dominica?
Well, I always say that as a development expert, we grew at our own pace. particularly in the global South region. You have Latin America, South America, and the Caribbean region. We tend to grow at our own pace. And as proponent of positive development, sometimes that's not always a bad thing because we can learn from the mistakes that others have made and we can put them you know, into sort of scrutiny and not allow us ourselves to make those mistakes. For example, within cannabis industry, we have lost billions of dollars here in Canada, multi-billions, and we're talking USD. A small island like Dominica cannot afford to lose, multiple billions in USD. And so sometimes we cannot always be a front runner. Sometimes it's important to take a back seat. It's important to learn from the research and the development. It's important to also incorporate our own historical perspectives into our own national development and discourse. For example, within cannabis, we know in the 1970s came about the Dread Act, and it has always been part and parcel, and the right of Rastafarian to use the herb within their own spiritual realms and practices. We also have the indigenous people on the island who have also used the herb in their own spiritual practices, and big up to the Kalinago people one time. And but you see, it's imperative that we keep our eyes peeled and we learn from a lot of the mistakes that countries that go first to market and the challenges and the hardships and focus solutions that they're able to put into place, because something like that could bankrupt our country overnight, so to speak, because we do not have the financial capacity. I
Yeah,
mean,
but here's what I'm thinking. Was isn't the onus on us to look at the mistakes made, learn the lessons from the mistakes made, and then produce an industry that is suitable to our needs? Because now it begs the question: are we missing out on major opportunities for economic development, especially as it relates to our young people, the youth development, getting young people like you did back when you were in Dominica excited about the opportunity to be a part of this industry, which is booming, a $30 billion industry, and just receiving a small piece of the pie? So are we to the point where we should be looking at those lessons that we should be learning from the mistakes of others so that we can implement a program that makes benefits of the cannabis industry?
well, definitely, it's an ongoing, evolving discourse. There are many states that have still yet to legalize cannabis in the US. And the US were one of the first countries to pass its legislation where to prohibit cannabis, and all the other countries followed suit. So we also have to take into consideration when we look at power structures and the influence that they have and where our position at in the world, and we tend to follow, sort of can help to slow down development. But I get your point. Internally within our own country, we definitely have to sort of encapsulate this sort of collaborative discussion and outreach. Were there any outstanding sort of probably researchers who have done a poll on the Dominican society to ascertain the popular views of cannabis legalization? I know right now we have taken steps, I believe, to decriminalize it to a point where a few grams of cannabis probably is now acceptable within the Dominican society. Here in Canada, you are allowed up to 30 grams. I'm not sure how many grams that probably is allowed within the Dominican society per household. You can grow up to 4 plants as well. So that's helping on a quasi level. However, for real sort of economic development, we need to go into processing as well. We have hemp that is can also be a huge industry for CBD and providing relief for age inclusive discussion for senior citizens who suffer from arthritis and rheumatism, and even areas of like cataract we have, and glaucoma. Cannabis has shown promise, epilepsy and Parkinson diseases. Cannabis has shown promise within research from many geopolitical countries in the global north, that we can sort of benefit from. But as a country, it's important to grow at our own developmental pace, fostering collaborative discourse like what we're doing here today, and sort of helping to play in the further destigmatization, the normalization and acceptance for cannabis. I even remember as a young boy smoking cannabis in Dominica and in the streets of Vickers. The elders was telling us, ça que fini la viso,
That
you
will
know,
end your life.
that will end your life, and I can even remember even coming up here in Canada and going to school, or, living in Dominica. A lot of people, including teaching colleagues, they would tell me, garçon, coupe chiveu, ou kale fe moun pe ou ale la,
Oh
you know.
my.
So we have a lot of um, destigmatization and work to do, because cannabis, having dreadlocks, these things were demonized back in the days. And I'm proud to do all what I have done with my dreadlocks proud, and my crown on my head. Majority of these businesses I've worked in and for, I was the only black person there, most of the times. So I always tell people, you are what you are, and you believe in who you are. You're not going to let the hair on your head stop you from doing what you need to do. You have
Mhm.
something important that you have to contribute to the world. Despite your circumstances, you dig deep, you remain resilient, you persevere, and you go forth and get it. One of my favorite quotes raising up in Vegas would be to inspire, then aspire, then perspire, then retire, then you expire. So, it's a journey. It takes a course of action, and fostering both local discourse and engagement within our own communities, and coming up and ascertaining how many people are for cannabis, how many people are open minded about using cannabis, what are the targeted, segmented age that we carried this research on the ground. From a national standpoint, can we get an overwhelming majority that support the legalization of cannabis within our country? What educational resource that we can pull from to sort of educating, whether through town councils and town meetings and community block engagement, about cannabis education, the possibilities for holistic healers, the possibilities of job creation for our young people, the possibilities for entrepreneurs and businessmen within the Roseau society, especially where the tourist boats normally comes in, the possibilities for tourism and the hospitality sector, and how we can sort of train our people and get a slice of the pie in relation to where cannabis sort of development is taking place. But it all starts with dialogue with the people, working together with the people. And that's what my book is about, cannabis development. It speaks about chapter one, where I delve into the historical context from a global perspective, to going into participatory forms of cannabis development. And that's, we're part and parcel in taking part of that participatory sort of exercise. And from there, we look at women and cannabis development. We look at gender and cannabis development. We look at senior citizens and age-inclusive cannabis development. We look at minority and underrepresented communities, looking at in terms of economic development and cannabis development, environmental stewardship, cannabis tourism, cannabis sovereignty, social justice, because we had cannabis being criminalized, and in local context we have the Rastafarian community who has been ostracized over the years for its use of cannabis, and cannabis sovereignty. They should have their sovereign right to sort of worship along with the indigenous people, the first people of the world, to partake and to help develop their cannabis industry within our own country's cannabis sort of discussion. I also looked at cannabis and cooking. I also look at sports and cannabis. I also look at spirituality and cannabis. And I also look at veterans and cannabis development, because, after war and the traumas of war, they suffer from PTSD. And, we have a growing population within the United States where veterans are coming back home and finding themselves homeless on the streets of the great United States, and finding themselves after they have served the country and have fought in many wars to be among the homeless and not taken care of. I stand to fight and to help to see how cannabis can become a savior in combating their alignments in those parts of the world. And people also love their animals, so I
Mhm.
also looked in animal welfare and cannabis development, among other topics like music, the symphony of song and cannabis. And back in the Caribbean, we know the great Bob Marley is known worldwide for his inspirational advocacy on cannabis and music development. Right here in Dominica, we got Nasio Fountain, who is our local reggae musician, specializing pretty much in the intersection of cannabis and music. We had Nelly Raffle, as a woman, also in the intersection of cannabis and music. So within the general discourse, there are many cross-disciplinary and interdisciplinary aspects of cannabis horticulture that we need to bring forth discussions and dialogue to the general public, and sort of get their overwhelming feel as to where we stand in terms of cannabis, its development, and how our population on island, irrespective of um, age, sex, class, nobody should be left out within the cannabis discussion. I believe our new laws has just amended to accepted the LGBTQ community. They too also suffer from the stigma from cannabis, because you have a lot of the LGBTQ community, along with the Cannabis Society, who has been operating in the closets for many, many years, because they were afraid of to be shunned in society, either to be either using cannabis or either as another participant within the LGBT community. And these
Yeah,
are
and I think I think we can all certainly see why you were selected as one of the leading minds on cannabis in Canada, because you have a profound hold on the topic. And also, I want everyone who's thinking, wow, this is such a comprehensive book that Brendon has written, and it's such an important learning tool. How might I get a copy? So again, if you're listening, take down the website, www.ganjapapaworld.com. So that is G as in George, A as in Nancy, A as in Apple, N as in Nancy, G as in January, A as in Apple, Papa, Papa, world.com. So www.ganjapapaworld.com. So Brendon, we have a whole lot more to cover. I also want to talk about the courses that you offer, because again, it is about providing those learning tools so that we in Dominica have access to the resources we need. And I also want to ask you, so we'll come back when we come back from the break. I also want to ask you if you've been approached by the powers that be to make a contribution to the development of Dominica, and if you're interested in doing so. So I want you to think on that question for a little while we go over to the studio and invite our callers to be a part of the conversation. But again, if you're just joining us, we're speaking to Mr. Brendon Roberts out there in Canada, and he is one of the top cannabis minds. He's also the chair of research and policy for the Canadian Cannabis Tourism Alliance. And we are talking about from criminalization to a booming industry, can Dominica still benefit from the growing worldwide cannabis industry? So take a break, Brendon, take a sip of water, a sip of tea, and let us go over to the studio. Lambi, if you could give us the phone numbers, please.
You are listening and viewing Roots and Q. The numbers to contact us are as follow: 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257. These are all local numbers, and the overseas number is 305-432-9624. Let me run this again one more time. 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257, all local numbers, and the overseas or international number 305-432-9624. Back to you, Simon.
Yes, thank you very much, Lambi. And we will also be taking the comments on Facebook and YouTube. But Brendan, I have some very thought-provoking comments coming in from Dr. Davidson Lloyd. We mentioned earlier he's an environmental scientist and a soil specialist, and this is what he's asking. He says he's making a good point, but there's a process for informing and learning. I'm not sure much is being done in that regard on a national level. You can also move too slowly. What does he think about local cannabis strains, the value in preserving them, and what we should be doing in that regard? What direction is he recommending specifically for Dominica, given our nature island concept? So he also proposed in that program that I was looking at with him that Nature Island brand, the organic brand of Dominica, is a wonderful selling point. So what are your thoughts on the questions he's posing today?
Yeah, he poses a very good question. And to answer his question, looking at the Canadian context and then diving into the Dominican context. For example, Health Canada and the government set up the Cannabis Act and regulations here, and you had very little dialogue and discussion with the Canadian people. And you had a wide sort of upset sort of cannabis society, particularly from the legacy, the ones that were doing it before the black market era, and we had seen, big businessmen who has never been really affiliated with cannabis, and billionaires and millionaires jumping into the fold. And what you had is that you had a lot of bad product on the market, meaning that they didn't taste good, meaning that they had to burn millions of grams and annually from these businesses. A number of them shut down. These businesses went on the public market, took monies from senior citizens and retired people with their retirement savings, and a number of them collapsed. A number of these big businesses collapsed. And that all stems from not really going and targeting the development perspectives on the ground and engaging with community. Within the Dominican society, we have much of a small population. We're almost about 40 million in Canada. In Dominica, we'd like to see around 70,000. Probably it's closer to within 60 to 70,000. And yes, we need the government to take more aggressive rules in helping to be a front runner with the private sector, because the government is just one entity. We also need non-governmental organizations, grassroots movements on the ground. And I know Ras Bobby tried his best within those realms as well to try to connect grassroots individual, particularly the Rastafarian and people who are want to be included in the general inclusive and holistic development of cannabis. And to his point, further, we're looking at, yes, having the land races preserved, but seeing that we have not done research as to the benefits that they may possess in terms of cannabinoid content, in terms of terpene profiles, medicinal profiles. We definitely want to preserve them so that we can carry out more research and development, and even look for cultivars that are suitable to cross them with, that can provide greater breeding and upbringing of the breed, so that we can have a truly sort of Dominican classic. And it will definitely stem from having a boutique industry. To go forward, a boutique industry would be, the thing that I would advise us as grassroots people within Dominica learning cannabis locally, but it has to be done in a regulative manner, and that's where the government comes in the role of legislation and regulation, but having it done with part and parcel within communities. This may be pivotal in terms of our future leaders and the discussion that they have with our general public, and where does cannabis fits into the dialogue, because cannabis is a separate industry from agriculture. Yeah, they have twinned it into two industries. So agriculture is on its own, cannabis is on its own. Cannabis tourism is another industry on its own. So you have cannabis and you still have the cannabis tourism, which is two industries
Interesting.
separately. So there have lots of rules for growth. We will have to strengthen our legislation in terms of our operating sort of security plan and our physical security plan to address how we can make it safe for visitors alike within our communities, partaking within our cannabis culture, and whether they can buy cannabis that is safe for consumption, free from contaminants, free from pesticides, free from heavy metals, free from E. coli, and free from mold. So we have lots to do from a scientific standpoint that will allow us to have a sort of draft bill um, within our sort of leadership and governmental legislature aspect that can go forward in order to create a wholesome industry where we can benefit both from cannabis and cannabis tourism within our own small island developing states. But yes,
Yeah, and Yeah, and the other thing we have to consider is that the government has a major role to play, because one of the things I learned from listening to that program that I keep mentioning about is the need for soil testing. And it is quite expensive, and the local farmers just do not have the funds to be able to go into soil testing. So it will take an investment from the government to get into these aspects of having a thriving cannabis industry when it comes to the overarching factors, elements that are important to the cannabis industry, creating the markets, getting the markets that are needed for this booming industry, the advertising of Dominica as a cannabis tourism destination. So again, we are very limited in terms of what we can do if we do not have a national policy. But I still don't think that all is lost.
oh no, we definitely need the infrastructure, and we know agricultural industry has suffered in Dominica for the last couple of decades. It's no secret we had the Dominica coconut products, Palmolive left. It's no secret our coffee plant never got going off the ground in Dominica. It's no secret that Hurricane Maria further decimated a lot of the crop, cover crops, as well as the tubers and stuff that probably only survived the storm on island. So we know that, and we have limited. There is this China friendship program within the 1 mile sort of section within Portsmouth. We have at the Botanical Gardens the Citrus and Plant Propagation Center that is there. And in numerous jurisdictions, we have extension officers assisting our local farmers. We know our farm roads are in a dilapidated condition, and within our rough terrain and stuff, and a lot of waterways washing down these roads. It's a challenge as well for the government and local citizens. But yes, we definitely need more. We have lost our banana industry. Banana was green gold back into the days. In the boxing plant out in you have at DBMC and Portsmouth. We're not shipping bananas like our counterparts. I've been hearing of Antigua making plantain chips, and we are the ones providing Antigua with plantains. And so we know that our agricultural industry on a whole has taken a significant hit that has pretty much undermined our GDP and our production capacity over the years. Thank God for our little window hucksters that continues to make a living within that sector at home and goes to the neighboring Caribbean islands to deliver their produce. Otherwise, it's a hustle. You have the Salisbury farmers, the Senju farmers out in the Cajon area. They are the ones trying their best to keep the market alive, probably in the Roseau area. I'm even hearing right now, entrepreneurs are now putting even water in the coconut water to stretch it. So it's no secret that agriculture has remained on the back burner, despite the government, with their efforts trying to help the sector. You could finance, get loans at the aid bank, but not many farmers are in a position probably to access these loans. You have through natural disasters and most importantly, we still have to put onus on ourselves, poor farm management, within our farmers, because our capacity development and extension has not upgraded on a level enough to assist our farmers to elevate their level in agriculture and horticultural disciplines. We don't really have testing facilities in Dominica. Our product would probably have to go outside. I'm hearing of also talks about the international airport that could also aid in exporting product, almost a day shipment out of Ireland, which will be a plus if it do come on stream. We have heard for years cargo
One,
boats.
1 second, Brendon, hold your thought. We have heard from years cargo boats. We're going to take a call. My apologies.
Good evening, caller. Thanks for joining us. Please go ahead.
Good evening. I have this question to ask. Do the Windward Island produce banana like St. Vincent, Grenada, St. Lucian? Because Dominica was just top area producing banana. So I would like to know if they stop taking bananas or shipping bananas overseas, or Dominica just stop shipping bananas because of the government policy handout. I don't understand at all. A place with fertile soil and all those water and land, good land, for Dominica to stop planting banana, it's a shame.
Yes, thank you, caller. Thank you for your question. You have any thoughts on that, Brendon?
Well, we know we have as a underprivileged country within the Caribbean has taken a great hit from Britain. You know, even here in the global north, people are very picky about their products. If they see a little blemish on the fruit, they won't buy it. You know, in back home, I learned growing up as a little boy, if it's good for the insect to eat, it's good for you to eat. Here is a different story. The rather their crops with pesticide and it's looking pristine and clean. But back in the days, Longhouse and Dominica was a great banana producing nation. Um, and it has dropped over the years from the 80s all down to the 90s to virtually a non-existent industry right now. And we have preferential treatment over cheaper forms of sustainable banana production from Central America, Chiquita,
Peter.
Dule. These you probably see it yourself through the US supermarkets. They are flooding the shelves because these countries have vast expanse of flat land, as miles as your eyes can see. Dominica, our topography is a challenge, yet we grow high quality produce or produces very high quality and more high quality than the Chiquita and Dole bananas. But in terms of quantity, we're not able to do that. And probably also because of the challenges of our terrain, our cost of production is a lot more and make it, um, you know, these other countries can become more competitive in terms of producing volumes at smaller price quantities, creating better price equilibrium for marketers, for buyers. So we also have to understand all these economical concepts that also plays into developing our own niche markets and creating long-term sustainability from those markets and the external threat of competition that we will face from other countries that are more favorable with its landscape for agricultural mechanization, automation, which can elevate their industry to higher heights, which will still remain with a lot of issues and challenges among our own industry. But regardless, we always known that Dominica was even one of the citrus baskets of the world at one point. Growing how many metric tons of limes and lemons and produce to the geopolitical outside world. So we have the capabilities, we have the altitudes, we have the various zonings on island that can provide favorable cultivation and horticultural excellence is how we can put everything together combined with the inflow of economic resources to develop the infrastructure so that our farmers can produce but provide assistance to our farmers in a way where they are incentivized to go into agriculture because today the youth is not incentivized to do manual labor um, in the country. They're not incentivized to take apart and create products that can go to a processing plant and they can buy wholesale from them and get processed into added value products and materials for sale, both domestic and for export. So with the lack of incentives, we tend to have restricted opportunities, and with the restriction of the opportunities, we tend to have an environment that creates, discouraging feeling where the youths no more want to go and plant watermelon probably in Salisbury. You hardly see probably pineapples going on in Roseau anymore. Lettuce and vegetables. You have our other Caribbean citizen island counterparts, our Haitian brothers and sisters, they are coming to Dominica, and some of them are even working harder than us on the farms. And right now, probably even overtaking the local market, while they're trying to make means by using the land, and the local sort of vigor is not there anymore from the people to continue what was once, a thriving, small sort of community initiative agricultural in every nook and cranny within the country and
Yeah,
village.
yeah, and I want to make sure we take the comments on Facebook because we have a lot of comments coming in. But to the caller's question, I want to make sure that we explain that very clearly. So this is what I'm hearing that you're saying, Brendan. The world has changed, right? So at one time, Dominica enjoyed preferential treatment for the sales of bananas to Britain. Since then, without the preferential treatment, other nations with more lands conducive to producing in bulk have simply taken over. Chiquita banana comes to mind. I think you mentioned Dole as well. And what we are finding is that these nations have integrated automation technology into farming where they're able to produce at a massive scale at a much reduced cost. So again, the world is changing, the world is moving forward, and in that regard, we are now on the back burner, not only in terms of lack of incentives to grow and to be engaged in agriculture, but also because the competition is relentless. The competition out there is now relentless. So that is putting us at quite a disadvantage. So how did I do on that on that question?
You did very well. And to add more weight to that question, right now in North America, food prices, you would probably sit in your neck of the woods, has skyrocketed through inflation over the last couple of years. You go to the supermarket, and it's not how it used to be 5, 10 years ago. So food security is very paramount, and in those countries they grow vast amount of corn and potatoes and different staple crops, but a lot of their crops are also genetically modified. They will take cactus genes and put in tomato to allow the tomato to withstand the harsh summers and the droughty conditions in certain areas. I mean, for our local people, even individuals who live like 127 years, like Mapampu, she probably never ate a genetically modified crop in her life. And today, over the last couple of 4 decades, we're now starting to receive the data from the genetically modified crops and see what it has done to the society, whether there are any alignments with cancers and issues that may stem from them. Even the food, the food tastes very state of the art, but when you eat it, it doesn't give you the same amount of energy that you can go out and work for hours into the field as if you eat a Dominican food. The yams and the dashing and fresh fish and ground provisions and, lentils, and, these provided us with, serious energies, wholesome food. Here, the food is not at the same level. It might be cheaper. They can stretch it and take corn syrup and put it into many byproducts and on the shelves, but they are all sugar, pretty much the same. We have high rates of obesity in those countries, regardless of them having cheaper food, but the quality is a lot, substandard. So sometimes we also have to have a overwhelming appreciate for what we have, because I wish I was eating Dominican food, for the rest of my life. Unfortunately, sometimes I cannot have access to it where I'm at. But that's just to say that, though our production is very small and little, and our topography and landscape is challenging, and it makes it more difficult to integrate artificial intelligence automation, innovation to our agricultural system that further exacerbate the problem and developing the industry on a whole. But we have high quality products, and we can also find lucrative ways of working around those challenging challenges by creating focused solutions as a people, so that we can continue to show our youth how agriculture can become a sustainable enterprise. We have herbs in terms of wellness and healing, the Bailey factories out in Delices. Well, we know some of those communities took very hits during both Erica and Maria, but we have the herbal sector, which is a big booming industry even out here now in North America, because we know the herbs has always been used for the health and wellness and healing of the people, and we've now having all sorts of carcinogenic substances on the shelves here, which create cancers. Now, the herbs come very much important to countries like the global north for extracting the raw materials and helping to further help its healthcare system in those countries up here. We have those flora and fauna, natural and indigenous to Dominica. And, praise God, I guess Dominica has stayed untouched and unspoiled for many years and probably still today. So we still have a lot of our natural biodiversity remains sort of untouched and preserved in a way. But yes, we can do more for agriculture, we can do more for the education, we can do more for the infrastructural development, we can do more for the farmers, because the farmers has always been our breadbasket of our nation. And if a
Yeah.
small country like Dominica has to depend on exports, I don't believe we'll be able to survive for too long. So we need to sort of reintroduce food security curriculum programs back in our high school, back in our primary school. Growing up, going to school in the 90s, you had your little flower garden and your flower bed outside of your class. Today, how many schools can we go to in Dominica and still see that sort of tradition in maintaining the upkeep of those beginning? That's how my journey started, and we can do more. But as a people, we can also come up with creative solutions, because as I say, as it took me as a teacher going back to school on the weekends, we can develop community cooperatives. We can develop resource pooling mechanisms so that we can help our own economic situation with the resources that we have. Just the same way I stayed in Dominica and was writing proposals to Canada to solicit funding and grant opportunities to help different schools and agricultural programs on island. We can come up with creative means as our own collaborative community endeavors.
Yeah, and I
And
think what you're also saying, Brendon, because in responding to the caller's question, we must state that all is not lost, because just be and I think you've said it well. We can focus on the problem, or we can focus on the solution, because that creates an opportunity for Dominica to market itself as an organic brand nature island. So rather than maybe focusing on chasing that banana industry, which has far outrun us at this point, maybe we focus on what you're talking about, the boutique industry, the wellness industry, the fact that we have boutique opportunities for wellness. That is the brand. And I'm just not sure why we haven't figured that out yet, because everything else we do falls under that brand. From our herbalist to our cuisine to our culture to our music to our, tourism sites, it all falls under the concept of the Nature Island brand. But Brendon, my followers on Facebook are gonna be mad with me because I haven't taken not one comment. So please let us go ahead and take the comments, and then we'll come right back to you. But fascinating discussion, Brendon. Thank you so much. So Alistair Irish is here. He says, "Good evening, Doc. I'm always locked in." Elvis Poppy Edwards, we talked about him before. He is here. He says, "Good vibes." Glenda Luge, good evening to you. Desmond Abraham says, "Great programs, guy. Keep it up." Father Sharpless is here. Herman H. Sharpless, Father Sharpless, wonderful to have you on board. He says, "Well done, Brendon. We are proud of you and your achievements. You are a proud son of Vekas and a symbol of hard work and determination. Your mom and grandma are smiling from heaven to see what you have become. God be before you, always guiding and protecting you in all your endeavors." Thank you so much, Father Sharpless, for posting this. Desmond Abraham Anguilla is in the house. He says, "Good evening." Matthias Alexander, great job, great potential. Matthias also says, "Actually, the lawyers and doctors are knee deep in agriculture these days." Thank you for that. Martina Roy is watching from New York, and she says, "Good evening, Brendon. It is nice to see and hear Baker's massive." Thank you. Crispin Shillingford, good vibes, positive Dominica. Lisa Lubin, you have an outstanding keynote. You have an outstanding keynote address in Niagara. Thank you. My mom, Medina Sandhouse, good evening. D.A. Rose, listening and watching. Owen Prosper, good evening, my patriotic family. Thank you for being here, Owen. Simeon George is here. Sheehan Shanna Robin, another great inspiration, especially for our young people. Shannon, thank you for being here. Big up Rastaman. You have come a long way. Proud of you. Thank you. Let's take from someone we haven't heard from. Veronica Pascal, good evening, Dr. Simone and Brendon. We need you to teach Dominica about the cannabis industry. I have 3 acres of land. I am ready for it. Great, Veronica. Thank you for chiming in. Let's see from someone we haven't heard from. Addison Baptist, it is always wonderful to have you on board. Thank you for being here. Jonathan Commodore, agriculture is no longer a main subject in our school programs compared to before. Lauren Del Sol, my friend, great to see you. She's locked in. Marshall Lawrence, good evening. Dr. Simone, thanks to your guest. Dominica Produce in demand. St. Martin too. So some wonderful comments from everyone on the Facebook Live. So we are grateful for everyone who are tuned in via the radio, Facebook, YouTube. Thank you very much for being here. And as we continue to explore opportunities for moving Dominica forward. So Brendon, let's get into some of what you're involved in and we asked the question before the break. And that question was, have you been approached? And if approached, would you be interested in kind of overseeing the development of the cannabis industry in Dominica? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have not been approached, but if I've been approached, I mean, I would definitely assist like I'm assisting every country and every other nation, and Dominica would be no exception. I mean, I grew up in Dominica. I know the country very well, and have played a part in its education as well. So Dominica, as my birth country, has given a lot to me, and it would be an honor to assist in its own development where cannabis is concerned. So if I was ever approached, you can bet your bottom dollar that Brendon Roberts would definitely assist and play an integral, inclusive, and holistic part in the development dialogue of its unique cannabis industry.
Well, and we also know that the powers that be listen very attentively to our programs. So here we have yet another Dominican who is interested in facilitating the development of Dominica, offering his services to his country of birth. So we are certainly very proud of our people and proud of the contributions they have made. Now, let us talk about some of what you're involved in, Brendon. We know that you're the chair of research and policy for the Canadian Cannabis Tourism, and that's ensuring inclusivity in the rapidly growing cannabis economy is a top priority for me. I'm even more excited you are honored to be nominated for the Grow Up 2024 Awards Gala. You are in the categories for Grower of the Year, Consultant of the Year, Influencer of the Year. So you have been nominated for three categories: Grower of the Year, Consultant of the Year, Influencer of the Year, and we are seeking your support. So I'm going to put the website to go to, but for those listening, if you would like to support Brendon, the website is it triple W as well, Brendon? Grow Up
Yes,
Awards?
triple
So
W.
so www.growawawards.com /vote/awards. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right. So growawawards.com /vote/awards. And in addition to this new role, I've founded two reputable organizations: Ganja Papa Solutions, dedicated to enhancing cannabis cultivation businesses, and Ganja Papa World, Universal Plant Medicine Association, which provides support and scholarship for plant medicine research. Furthermore, I am the proud author of the Cannabis Development, a social science guide unveiling the intersection of cannabis society and self-enlightenment. So again, we saw the book being displayed. I extend my sincere gratitude to the Cannabis and Caribbean Dominican community for your unwavering support, constructive feedback, and collaborative spirit. Together, we can achieve great things. Let's continue to uplift and support each other's success. And he says, who's ready to join the journey? I'm ready. So tell us about Ganja Papa Solutions and Universal Plant Medicine. Because again, Brendon, when do you get time to sleep?
Well, you see, Ganja Papa Solution was founded as part and parcel because I knew that there would be a lot of issues stemming from the cannabis development dialogue. And how could I position myself in catering focused solution towards the problems or emerging problems of the industry? And having steward the largest indoor, outdoor, and first farm to gate facility in the country, pretty much, it allowed me to develop a wide background and scope as to what is taking place from the Pacific coast of Canada all the way to the Atlantic coast of Canada. So I've driven and did extension in every nook and cranny. Sometimes they tell me in their communities that the Prime Minister of Canada does not even know Canada like you. That's because I've been almost like everywhere on the ground, and Canada is very huge. From the east to the west, probably might take me 8 days on the road driving. Yeah, it's a huge country. So having developed all the prerequisite skills and the first-hand knowledge with executive management rules and a rich background within the cannabis industry here in Canada, Ganja Papa was founded to further provide consultation and solutions for businesses within the emerging cannabis industry. And later, I then founded the Universal Plant Medicine Association to help support students with research and those that may need financial funding, where we can get funding to assist them in their endeavors to contribute harmoniously to the plant medicine development and dialogue, both domestically and abroad. And there I started with two universities, the University of Guelph, where I came, is a alumni from, and also the University of McGill in Quebec, Montreal. So having been in those university, also in the University of McGill with the International Cannabis Bar Association, and sort of plant sort of law um, doctors within the field, that deals with the legislation of intellectual property rights in the cannabis industry, and also extension with the faculty and dean of plant sciences and agriculture in the French province of Canada. Give me more of a robust background in understanding a lot of the intricacies and nuances that deals with the holistic and inclusive development, dialogue, and discourse, and how we can further create more educational and extension opportunities to assist more individuals, because you have students that are doing their masters in cannabis sort of cultivation, cannabis sciences, whether you're dealing in post-harvest and curing processes, cannabis micro propagation, where we can isolate genes of cannabis plants that has desirable traits and prolific characteristics, so that these genes can be stored in the event that some of the licensed producers or farmers encounter diseases, fungus, pests, and challenges that could decimate their crop, and having access to genetic bank of material that are disease and clean and free from contamination, can provide, less downtime in the supply chain, and have their farm almost back in order overnight. So we do try to provide a lot of safeguards within the industry, and utilizing a lot of the core plant principles that deals with plant pathology and plant sciences, and bringing forth all these transferable skills to cannabis, because it's a plant at the end of the day, and a lot of these skills are positively correlates. And you have cannabis genome sequencing, and we can develop different crops probably with limited amount of THC and CBD that can fit different targeted consumer profiles and demographics. So we have robust capabilities in providing even testing solutions for leaf tissue sample analysis, as well for cannabinoid testing. So all these are services that Ganja Pop-Up Services provides. I've also liaised with other individuals who wants to provide financial support to allow cannabis businesses to thrive, particularly because we know cannabis in its infancy stages of development. A lot of the banks are tentative within the first world countries to provide loans and lines of credits. So hardly you will find banks providing cannabis entrepreneurs with funding for them to grow their business. And so because of those constraints, looking at how we can create solutions for entrepreneurs within North America and the world by extension, that are qualified and capable to access funding. And the courses from the book, I've also developed two courses. Course one deals with the fundamentals of cannabis and the humanities, and the other one deals with the course number two, the advanced principles of cannabis and social sciences. So it allows businesses and individuals or scholars, or even the cannabis curious, to pretty much gain a sort of comprehensive grasp on the core social sciences that's important to understand where we at with cannabis, where cannabis has been historically. Yes.
Now, are these courses offered online?
Yes. So these courses are completely digital. They are e-courses. I create them myself. They also have a final exam as well, as along with different modules that you will go through the final exams. The book is also an additional resource and a bonus. The book also has an digital copy as well as a hardback and paperback copy. It is sold through my website, www.ganjapapaworld.com. It is also sold on Amazon. It is also sold on Barnes and Nobles. It is also sold on every major book offering in North America. It was written here in Canada by myself. It was also published in the United States by a US publisher. So it's part and parcel of a global narrative and discourse. I didn't want to leave out the global community, so the book has an international context feel as to the development, because it's not because the global south has taken a sluggish sort of approach to cannabis legalization, meaning that we know more than them, so to speak. So we cannot ostracize them, airbrush them, alienate them, and sidelight them from the general discourse of the cannabis development, because we have a lot of herbalists, natural healers, that all the herbs and spices historically, in the conquest of lands, they have always came to the global south for their medicine, for the developing country and the developing world. So it's not because we tend to have a slower approach in the development dialogue, which means that we know less. So, I'm not the scholar that holds the popular opinion. Because some countries can be last to something, it means that we may know better or more than them. So as I say, I'm a proponent that every area develops and grows at its own pace and in its own time. However, we still have to foster positive growth and positive economic development outcomes. And that's where visionary leaders can come into the fore and help to create and fuel that environment, to uplift their societies and creating a beacon of hope for their people and other neighboring countries in the region and the globe by extension.
Yeah, and this has been a fascinating conversation, Brandon. I cannot believe that the 2 hours have already gone and came and gone. This has been a fascinating conversation, and as of date now, we have presented two experts in the realm of the cannabis industry. So I think at this point, we have no excuse for not being a part of the cannabis industry and enjoying a piece of that $30 billion pie. But as you give us your parting words this evening, Brandon, let's say that the government calls on you to be a consultant to oversee the formal formation of the cannabis industry in Dominica. Just kind of give us your parting words and then just tell us, 3 or 4 points in terms of what you would recommend to them to get started.
Well, that's a very good question, and I would say I would recommend with starting of the reinforcement of our agricultural departments and extension units on the ground, rehabilitating a lot of our facilities that are on island, and how we can improve on them with the use of artificial intelligence and innovation and automation that can at least provide sort of reliable testing for farmers, reliable genetic material and tissue samples that can provide training, for an education, extension outreach. So these would be the critical arm within the agricultural department, also providing investment. If the citizen buy investment program is still raising revenues, and having some of that money is funnel into providing its sort of cannabis development and agricultural sort of initiative on the ground, with providing, soft loans for farmers, with providing greater forms of fertilizers, tools, building research, probably tissue culture laboratory on island, and that can further aid in the building the capacities and capabilities of the nation's people, which can then attribute to a citizenry that is hardworking in that sort of related discipline, that can bring forth bountiful fruits of their labors, and harvest, so that we can have a thriving industry. So these are the areas I would say that would need to be critically addressed. We would also need to develop programs with Dominica State College, because education is important, and cannabis is something you have to be somewhere in the age of 18, 19 in those countries to legally access further educational opportunities. So I guess with the educational college program can slowly integrate cannabis courses that may create a reinvigorated spirit among the young people. We have the people from Granby, we have the people from the south, we have the people from Marigot, Ansdime, Wesley. All these areas were prominent trafficking cannabis areas within the illegal market days. These communities are no exception to partaking within the cannabis illegal trade. And how now we can, having a legalized country globally in cannabis, how we can continue to encapsulate those historical events that we have learned for many years on the ground, and incorporate that into the cannabis curriculum for education. And on that part, I would like to say thank you to all the listeners and viewers of Q95 FM radio. Thank you for sort of production, guests in the studio to keep everything running smoothly. Lambi, as always, and you, Dr. Simone, and thank you for a very entertaining discussion that seemed to be favorably rated based on the comments from the viewers and the participants and listeners. I would say lastly to everybody from my community, Vekas, including Father Herman Chaplis, who also spoke highly of me, and when he was also doing his degree here in Canada at the St. Mary University back in 2018. I recall, going and visit him. And, he has always been my childhood neighbor. So I'm happy that he was able to say a few nice words today about me. And, to other fathers like Father Monsignor John Lewis, who is my very good friend. I've also lived with him in the cathedral in Roseau as well. So I'm well regarded among the Catholic community. I used to be the acolyte that would lead the procession in the community with the cross and the incense, and help leading procession all the way to ensure that our dead is buried, and give them a proper ending towards their life and contribution to our community. So I would say thank you to everybody, and thanks for having me. And I look forward to probably being on the program in the near future.
Yes, we would greatly appreciate that. Thank you so much, Brendon. And I went ahead and shared your contact email address, ganjapapa@outlook.com. So again, ganjapapa@outlook.com for anyone who's interested in reaching out to Brendon. And guys, don't forget, if you missed any portion of the information, if you didn't get, the website or any of the information I shared, remember you can always go back and replay the program. So that is on Facebook and YouTube at Q95 FM Radio or on Push Past 10. So you have two options for viewing the replay of this program. And I genuinely hope that you share this program, because I think what we're seeing is not just the expertise of our Dominicans, but also that they represent us brilliantly around the world. So we are certainly very proud of Brendon Roberts and everyone else who continues to contribute to this program. So again, thank you for listening and thank you for viewing. Jane Bernard is looking. She and Shanna said, this is the man for the job. I certainly agree. Jonathan Commodore, great, important topic, very informative. And as you can see, Brandon Lammy keeps giving you that pump of the fist, saying good job. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing in your professional career, as well as representing us as a very proud Dominican. Because unfortunately, many people, they reach the height of success that you do, and they don't want anybody to know where they're from, and that is
Well,
true. Fortunate.
I would say with parting comments, I'm a Dominican born first and foremost. So I always represent myself very proud and my country in very high regard. I speak
Mhm.
to about Dominica very positively to the outside community. I have over 12,000 followers on LinkedIn in the business society, who are mainly from the global north region. And I'm also providing them a lot of in terms of my geographical background, my own story, and Dominica is part and parcel of that. So I'm proud of where I am. I'm proud of Dominica. Despite our challenges and issues within our own development, both locally and regionally, I still hold my country in high regard because I'm a proud Dominican and a proud son of the soil. Thank you.
Yes, very well said. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Roots Connections on Q. I've been your host, I'm Simone Matthews. So it is always wonderful as we come together every second and fourth Wednesday of the month, and we continue to showcase the people, the projects, the events which are geared at advancing Dominica. It is our way of showing that we are turning our passion for Dominica into action for Dominica. So I look forward to hearing from you. As always, my email address is pushpast10@gmail.com. So pushpast10@gmail.com. And before we leave, we leave this evening, I mentioned that we are also showcasing the organizations that have important fundraising events in your area. So on pushpast10.com, if you click on Beyond Remittances, because we are showcasing the fact that we don't just send barrels and send money to Dominica, we're actually providing fundraising opportunities in different areas where we live. So if you're interested in playing your role, because I always say we each have a role to play in our country's development, if you're interested in playing your role by supporting a fundraiser in your area, I would encourage you to visit pushpast10.com. We have on there the Economic Summit in Dominica. We have a flyer on the New Jersey Expo, which is happening in June. We also have an event for you from the Dominica Tampa Bay Association. We have an event for the Dominica Houston Association. And right here in Atlanta, where I currently reside, we have a fundraising event. So all the flyers, I want us to have one location where we can upload all the flyers so that you can visit and you can select what event you want to attend and financially support our passion for Dominica. And also very importantly, because I get lots of questions about scholarship opportunities for Dominicans. So there is a scholarship opportunity posted by the Dominica Orlando movement. So that as well is included at pushpast10.com. So again, if you have any event, fundraising events that is related to the development of Dominica, I would urge you to send me the flyer, send me the information at pushpast10@gmail.com. Or if you just want to reach out, we have several people who reach out to say, hey, I have a guest that will be great for your program, someone who wants to make a contribution. You can always reach me at that address. So again, thank you everyone for being here for another episode of Roots Connections. We will continue for the next 3, 6, 9, 12, how many more years it will take to advance our country. We'll continue to do the work of featuring the people, the programs, and the projects geared at moving Dominica forward. So with that, we say good evening, Brendon. Thank you again. I look forward in keeping in touch with you. Please let us know everything that you are doing in your corner of the world. So guys, thank you for being here. And with that, we say good night, good evening, and have a great rest of the week. Take care. Thank you, Brendon.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Roots Connections on Q, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. every other Wednesday on Q95, the big station. Dominicans journeyed beyond our shores for decades in search of economic opportunities and educational advancement. Many are ready to give back to their cherished nature island. Welcome to Roots Connections on Q. Join Dr. Simone Matthew on Q95 as we tap into the life and times and expertise of our nature island Dominicans, at home and abroad, from our agriculture and industry to sustainable development.